Hey guys, so you have a product and you're set to go. You're ready to get yourself into a local retail store with your food item. Now, there are 4 things you need to keep in mind when you approach a store, and that's what this video is about. Hey guys, it's Damien again from Marketing Food Online, and as always, I hope you guys are having an amazing day. These are going to be 4 tips I'm going to give you from my own experience with local retail stores. There are a few items that I kind of learned along the way. Nobody actually had a chance to teach this to me, but it's great that I have an opportunity to bring you this information. So there are 4 things, and they're what I would say are probably the most important from my perspective and my experience. When you bring a food product to a local store, it might be an independently owned grocery store or maybe a type of Whole Foods styled store. But this information is going to be in particular going to be about really independently owned grocery stores or food markets. There is kind of a protocol, there's a step or a methodology, if you will, that when it comes to Whole Foods or Kroger's or Publix, they kind of operate in a different manner, okay? But this is when you want to approach a local store, you've already met with them and you've begun the discussion process as to the size of the case packs, where the product's going to go. When you start getting into the details of your product with that manager or that buyer at that local store, these 4 tips are going to be something to help guide you in kind of what you might want to expect when you interact with them. Okay, so I wrote a little quick note behind me on my board just to give me my talking points. So to get started off, the first thing you want to keep in mind is your case pack. The size of the amount of product you're going to sell in a case pack when they buy it by a case. Traditionally, stores obviously aren't going to buy just 5 or 6 bags or 5 or 6 quantities of a product. They're going to buy them by a case pack. Now, that is really going to be determined based on a few things. Number 1, you can initially set up your case pack quantity, and I would recommend that you do that in either increments of 12, 24, 36, 48, etc. But one thing you want to keep in mind, stores that are bringing in a new product, they don't have a sales history, okay? They're going to want to bring in probably as minimal amount as they can just to kind of get the ball rolling when you have a new product, because customers aren't going to know who you are. Customers aren't going to know your product, and it makes it kind of a bit of a challenge for the retailer to find those buyers, okay? And the reason why I say that is that a lot of retailers are going to have dedicated, obviously, on the shelf space, only so much what they call kind of real estate, and they have only so much space available, okay? So when you approach the buyer or you approach the manager and you've got a sales sheet, you've got information about your product, you can start off by a certain increment. You can say, you know what, my product comes in a 24 case pack. And you may also keep in mind, just a really quick side note, that if you have multiple flavors, let's say you have 4 different flavors of a product, you want to sell them in 24 of each flavor, okay? They may say, you know what, 24 of each flavor is going to be a lot for us, but we've got only so much shelf space available. So can you do it in increments of 12? You need to be really flexible and be willing to kind of, at the beginning, at the get-go, when you're starting, you've got to be flexible with retailers, especially if they're independently owned, because they kind of call the shots at the local stores, okay? A lot of these corporate companies, these large companies, the Wegmans of the world, the Kroger's, the Publix, the Safeways, and all of those, Costco and Walmart, the buyers will determine what they're going to buy from you, but you have a little bit of a wiggle room when it comes to smaller local stores or local venues. So you want to work with them as much as you can, be as flexible as much as you can, okay? And you may kind of expect that they're going to say, you know what, 24 or 36, that's kind of a lot. Let's just do 12 and say, you know what, not a problem. We can do that. And then you offer them, if it's 4 flavors or 5 flavors, whatever it is, you want to do them in sets of 12, okay? And there's nothing wrong with that. And keep in mind that you're just starting. You're getting local. You're starting small. And that's how everything that is big has always begun, okay? So smaller is better. Now, what I mean by that is that when you want to create the package size, okay, let's say, for instance, you are doing a trail mix. This is just an example. Okay, you're doing a trail mix. Most trail mixes that you'll see on the retail stores, by the way, this is a really quick side note, I would recommend that if you are selling or wanting to sell a particular product, do your homework. Go to the stores and find out, how are they packaged? How do they look? How big are they? What is on the package that makes one stand out from another? And that's going to be your own perspective, your own viewpoint. But go there and find out. A lot of trail mixes, for instance, they're not really, I've never really seen them in retail stores like in a pound. It's always like 8 ounce, 12 ounce, 14 ounce. It's always a little less than a pound. Okay, so that's kind of where you want to keep the kind of the marker for your package size. Okay, if you sell something much bigger, you're going to just increase your price point, and the retailer will have to mark it up even more. And you might actually do what's called pricing yourself out, and you'll price yourself out of that range of a food product that's very comparable to yours, and you'll lose sales. Okay, so if there's someone that's doing a 12 or 14 ounce of a certain trail mix, and you do a pound, and your price is like $3 extra or maybe $2 extra per bag, most consumers are going to just pick up the one that's within their price range, as well as the size. So don't oversize your package. Plus, the other thing I wanted to touch on was when you have a product that's in a smaller package, again, the retailer has only so much shelf space available. They can put out and they can buy more of the products that are physically smaller in size. And if they give you 2 rows, let's say they give you 2 rows of a product on their shelf space, you're going to be able to move a lot more of your product. Okay, now you can see where this comes into you selling more than they would if you have a larger package and a limited shelf space. Okay, if the retailer can get a lot of product on the shelf and it's utilizing smaller amount of space, that's better for both you and the retailer, because then the product turnover is going to be much faster. Okay, so let's say, for instance, there was the 8 ounce trail mix, okay? And you decided to go with the 6 ounce. Maybe your price point's a little bit smaller, but the 6 ounce bag, they can get almost 2 dozen on a shelf, okay? And the retailer's like, you know what? I really would rather do that. I think that's great. We can put more of your product out. Do it. Just go with the flow. And just when you're starting, you just want to get your product out there. You want to be on a shelf and get people to start recognizing your brand and your product. So be flexible with the size of the packaging, okay? And the size of your case pack, okay? So, and follow their guidelines. So here is where it can be a different experience when you deal with independently owned grocery stores. They kind of set up their guidelines as to introducing new products. Normally, they're going to have you set up a table. You're going to do sampling, maybe on the weekends, predominantly on the weekends, because that's traditionally the busiest time of the week for any retailer. So they may say, you know what, John and Chris, you know what, you need to be in here on Saturdays or Sundays. We'll give you about 2 hours each day, set up a table, sample it out. And they may have other guidelines about when you're going to be delivering the product, when you're going to refill the product. If the product gets low, ask them, hey, how does that work? Because each store handles that also differently, that you may end up having to go there and just take an inventory. Hey, you know what, I dropped off 20 bags. They sold 10, so I need to drop off 10 more. You know, they may say, keep me in stock with at least 2 dozen on hand. Keep me in stock with at least 3 dozen on hand. Follow their guidelines and ask. These are the questions that you need to kind of pick their brains and ask them about, okay? What it's going to do is it's going to set up a great rapport, a good relationship with the store and, of course, the store manager. And what will happen is if they've got multiple locations, right, and they start you off with just one store, they're going to say, wow, you know what, John and Chris, you guys have handled this so great. Your product is selling so good. Do you mind taking on 2 or 3 more stores? Then now you're seeing the ball roll a little faster, and now you're getting more exposure. And that's how small brands end up becoming big ones, okay? So I remember that we started off with the Fresh Market. I think it was 2 or 3 stores. It's been a couple of years since we've been in there, but 2 or 3 stores. And then they gave us, I think, 8 it was, and then close to about 10. We have almost a dozen stores. So we gradually grew with them. But keep in mind, they all have different rules, different policies, and different procedures for rolling out products. So just make sure you just kind of abide by that, play by the rules, and always be there when they need you to do a demo or something. And if you can't get there, there are actually companies you can hire that have demo people who can go do demonstrations. Now, that does cost money, but if you can't be there because you're filling other orders or you're growing your business, you may want to think about adding that into your budget and have a company do the promoting for you. All right, lastly, go in person and keep it friendly. Now, a lot of businesses that start off very small, of course, and they're selling locally, it's either husband and a wife or 2 brothers or a couple cousins. It's just always about a couple of people. Normally, smaller food enterprises don't have 7 or 8 people who just started the company. So you want to go in person. You're the one that's passionate about the product. You're the one that wants to go there, shake the hands, smile, Do it friendly, because you're putting your heart and soul into creating a product, which is going to create a brand. And what you want to do is you want to capitalize on that relationship with that local manager or a buyer or whomever that may be. Your contact person, keep in touch with them. Hey, you know what? Every 2 weeks or so, or a week, just give them a ring. Say, hey, John, I just wanted to follow up. How's it going with the product? And keeping that rapport and that line of communication open will open up a lot more doors than it would be if you've met them and you've had one experience. You come and you do a demo, then you just keep dropping stuff off. You don't make that effort to kind of see them when you're there. Like, let's say if you replenish or you bring more product, say, hey, you know what, is the manager, is John here? The buyer, I just want to stop in and shake his hand, and be really enthusiastic about what you're doing when you approach them, and keep that relationship going, because it's ultra important, because down the road, they're going to offer you more stores, okay? And you never know who may be in there to buy your product, by the way. It could be actually a buyer or someone who works for a larger chain, or even a co-packer who may offer their services. It may also be a food broker who says, you know what, I tried your product at such and such, and we actually have a food broker company. I would love to take your product nationwide. You never know. So starting local is always a great thing. Don't underestimate the power of being in just 1 or 2 stores. Even if it happens to be a half a dozen stores locally, you never know what customer or who will be buying your product. I remember when we got into Fresh Market, we actually started to get people on our website come in, and then they emailed us, hey, you know what, I found your product in Fresh Market. That's fantastic. I didn't know your website had so many items. And then you could start that and begin to get more customers just by being local. Okay, so I hope those 4 tips behind me helped you out in understanding the importance of starting small and the importance of bringing your product to a local grocery store, and then from there growing. Just take it one step at a time. Be patient with it. It takes time to grow. It doesn't happen overnight, but it can happen, and it doesn't really take a lot of extra effort just to keep a relationship going with that buyer. So if the video gave you guys a good understanding of that, please do give me a big thumbs up. I always appreciate the feedback. And if my videos can help out anybody that you may know, if you happen to be in the food business, or maybe you have someone that may be interested, let them know about my channel. I appreciate you guys supporting it, and of course watching my videos, and have a good one. Thanks, guys.